Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Workforce, Labor, Economic Development, Finance and Policy meeting here today. We've got a full room today, so I really appreciate a lot of the participants being here today. Welcome, members. I apologize for getting started just a little bit late this morning. We had some serious printing issues this morning, so we don't have a bill in front of us, members. It's on its way en route. When I've talked to the lead Pinto to make sure that he was okay with us talking about this bill in efforts to make sure that our time is used wisely this morning. We'll also have research in front of us too. So again, technology kind of got in the way a little bit today. I apologize, members and audience. Those are on its way, and we can't move the bill until the bill is in front of us. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. So my apologies for the short delay this morning. The plan today is just to talk about House File 11, which is the paid family medical bill pause, a one-year delay, and we're going to hear from a lot of people today. We have, is it this room reserved? This room will be reserved also for this evening. If we run into testimony and need more time to do this, we'll come back after the floor session tonight. We'll go into recess kind of at the call of the chair, but we do have this reserved for this evening as well. Today, Vice Chair Mecklin will kind of take over for me as I go to the testifier table to present the bill. Again, when we have a large audience, we just want to make sure that folks know that the decorum of the room is to try to, no applauses, no moans, no groans. There's a lot of reasons to do that. We just make sure that in this room we keep those kind of outbursts sort of not allowed here. I just want to make sure we're set up for that. I think I've got everything else in place. And members, what we can do right now, because we do see a quorum, we can pass the minutes. Representative Pinto, have you had a chance to look at the minutes from yesterday, February 11th? And if it's okay, we'd like to have you move the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I had not, but I just did.
Okay.
And the minutes look good to me. And I think, and so I do move approval of the minutes subject to what we talked about before. I'm a non-voting member of the committee. And so I think that I'm not actually allowed to make motions.
Well, then I can't ever do this again with you, can I, Representative?
I don't think that you can, Mr. Chair.
Representative Berg, would you mind looking at the minutes and just making sure we have approval of the minutes on the minutes?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually had looked at the minutes, and I moved to approve them.
Thank you, Representative Berg. Any comments, further questions about the minutes as presented, members? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes are carried. With that, I will head to the testifying table. Again, members and everybody else, we have paper on the way, so appreciate the ability to do that today. Be right back. Morning, Mr. Chair.
Morning, Representative Baker. Would you care to begin telling us about your bill?
Well, Mr. Chair, again, I just want to say thanks to everybody. Today, we're going to be hearing House File 11. This has been basically a lot of work from a lot of people to just really take another look at House File 11. We heard yesterday that there was a lot of reasons why I feel the delay in this is important. I think we had a lot of uniquenesses with this bill. How it was built, how it was authored, how the fiscal notes were not a normal fiscal note process. It was very confusing. It was late delivered to us in last session. We have not had enough time to really look at both sides and how it affects everybody that will be deeply affected by the work that a lot of us have been working on, is to provide medical and family protections for people around the state of Minnesota through a mandated payroll deduction. So again, this pause will just allow us to hear from more of this session. Members, I hope that we can have, again, very good questions. I'm hoping today that we can hear a lot of our testifiers, both for and against this idea, and I'm sure we'll take questions at the end, Mr. Chair, as to kind of how we'll do that. I think I'm just going to keep my minutes real brief this morning because I want to hear from others. And I know that the members will have more time to ask questions when they're finished with testifying. So with that, Mr. Chair, let's go to testifiers.
Thank you, Representative Baker. We're going to start with Lauren with the Minnesota Chamber, and after that will be Andy Wilkie.
And that's great, Mr. Chair. If I could just say, and we'll have the testifiers kind of coming as rapidly as they can to keep this going. And I did want to also mention my conversation with Lead Pinto. This next step is going to be to Ways and Means. So we are going to make sure that this bill has another stop in another committee, as kind of requested by Representative Pinto.
I'm
So
at
with
the
that, Mr.
desk
Chair, thank you.
so far.
What is that?
Lauren, if you're ready, please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Lauren Schotthorst, and I'm a policy director with the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, a statewide organization representing over 6,300 businesses and 500,000 employees across the state. Thank you for the opportunity to share our members' support for House File 11, pausing the implementation of the paid family medical leave program by 1 year. While of course we are fundamentally opposed to the idea of the state mandating an employer benefit and taking over the administration of it, programs that support this goal should have the dual effect of helping employees without creating an undue or uneven financial burden on employers. Balance is necessary to protect public interest and promote economic growth. In the last 2 years, roughly 35 new unbalanced mandates have been placed on business, burdening them with increased costs, operational and staffing challenges, additional unaccounted for paid time off and staff time, or the need to hire new staff entirely to spend on compliance. Looking ahead, the current paid family medical leave plan is also unbalanced and, at this juncture, from the perspective of large businesses already complying with other state or national programs to small businesses operating in our border communities, unworkable. As Minnesotans, we should all want state programs to operate and function as intended and within expected costs. Just look at UI, another billion-dollar program often praised by proponents of the mandate as being the model. Where just yesterday, in the Senate Jobs Committee, Deed presented on the fact that despite macroeconomic trends of low unemployment rates and decreasing experience rating, benefit payments and broad-based usage in UI is increasing dramatically, putting so much pressure on the UI Trust Fund that last year employers received a shocking UI payroll tax notice in late December indicating an immediate double-digit increase in base rates plus an additional 5% assessment. Just imagine the impact of this scenario playing out in the paid leave context, where the payroll tax rates are higher, the taxable wage rate is higher, benefit payouts will be larger, usage patterns will be larger, and qualifying conditions are more robust. Based on the discrepancies between fiscal note calculations and actuarial analysis of the structure of the program and an unrealistically condensed timeline for implementation, it appears Minnesota is at risk of launching an unsound program that will require taxpayers to stabilize and result in a negative experience for workers and employers alike. Numerous questions on the design, build-out, and integrity of this new system go unanswered, and answers to questions from employers about basic functionality and costs are not yet finalized or unknown. From our members' perspective, as entities that design, implement, and administer complicated benefits packages, we have offered numerous necessary adjustments to the program in order to ensure a more solvent, workable, and fair program that have gone unheeded to date. We have repeatedly asked legislators work to reduce confusion resulting from the interpretation of this new law since its enactment. In less than 1 year, the PFML mandate alone will impose a new, nearly $2 billion tax on every one of Minnesota's workers and employers, while exacerbating staffing shortages and constraining operations and growth. Employees right now are not looking for their pay to be decreased due to these new higher payroll taxes. In fact, most have no idea that this program is even financed through their own earnings. Employers are anxious about how their employees will be handled by the state. And the economy is not looking for businesses to cut back on hiring, benefits, services, and expansion in Minnesota to accommodate the effects of this program. Our members continue to request reasonable limits on the scope of this mandate, realistic time frame for its implementation, and relief from the financial and operational impacts of it. We think House File 11 is a more realistic approach to implementing a mandate of this magnitude and look forward to working with you on additional policy changes with this in mind. Thank you for the opportunity to share this perspective with the committee.
Thank you. One quick thing, if everybody who's testifying, if you can try to keep it to 3 minutes, we're going to be timing this, so I forgot to mention in the beginning. Andy, you may proceed.
Yes,
And the
thank you,
next
Mr.
after that will be John Beshy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Andy Wilkie, Executive Vice President of Greater Mankato Growth, the Regional Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Organization, serving over 900 members in the Greater Mankato region. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. Greater Mankato attracts a workforce from an area that includes 22 counties in southern Minnesota and northern Iowa. We are home to more than 25,000 college students and have the highest rate of retail spending per capita, more than any other Minnesota metro. Agriculture is a core part of our economy. We are the green seam. More soybeans are processed in Mankato than any other city in North America. To the proposal before us, all of our members sympathize with many of the goals of the paid family medical leave legislation. However, there have been more questions than answers, and the clock is ticking. Not only did this legislation create a new billion-dollar program that imposes a new tax on all employers and employees, but it also imposes a significant administrative burden on all employees, large and small, public and private, many of which are small business owners just trying to survive each day. Further, and most important, this law has already interfered with an employer's ability to tailor benefits that meet the unique needs of their workplace. This one-size-fits-all approach ignores the diverse needs of each employer across the state. A healthcare provider in Mankato, who's in the building today for Chiropractic Day, recently shared that while she sympathizes with the goals of this legislation, she has limited options to cover the cost at her practice. In the last 10 years, her reimbursement rates have remained flat. She has few options other than simply cutting costs elsewhere in the business. This may result in her allocating fewer resources for free support services for new mothers, babies, and families. Our members understand that their employees are the most valuable resource. They are doing everything they can to provide their employees with the benefits that they can afford. Minnesota has much to be proud of, but future success is not guaranteed. Adding burdens and barriers to employers will have negative unintended consequences on future growth. We urge you to support House File 11 and delay the implementation of this massive new program. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Before we go to John, Representative Baker, now that we have the bill in front of us, would you like to renew your motion?
I can do that, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members. And thank you, Ann, for coming in. I know that the printer was a problem this morning. So members, in front of you is House File 11. With that, Mr. Chair, members, I'd like to move my bill. Thank you.
Sorry, so moved. John, if you'd like to proceed, please do.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Mecklin, Lead Pinto, members of the committee. My name is John Beshy, and I am the State Director for the National Federation of Independent Business in Minnesota. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments in support of House File 11. NFIB represents over 10,000 small and independently owned businesses that are located in every corner of Minnesota. Our mission is to provide and protect the rights, to promote and protect the rights of our members to own, operate, and grow their businesses. NFIB was strongly opposed to the passage of a state-run paid family and medical leave program because of the immense costs and operational burden that it will impose on small businesses. While we remain opposed to the underlying mandate, we strongly support House File 11, which would provide an additional year for employers to adjust financially, explore innovative solutions, and meaningfully engage with state-led education and other resources. The Paid Family Medical Leave Act is the largest mandate ever to be imposed on Minnesota's businesses. And it comes at a time when businesses are already struggling with workforce shortages, increased tax burdens, and compliance with new regulations from the last 2 years. Most small businesses lack an HR department or accountant, meaning that the owner is regularly involved in both the administration and operations of the business. This bill would provide additional time for businesses to adjust their payroll systems, staffing plans, and financial strategies to accommodate the requirements of the new program. Employers have been hit with numerous mandates over the past 2 years, and each new mandate has required them to dedicate time and resources towards ensuring proper compliance. This bill would allow for a lengthier period of outreach and education to ensure that employers thoroughly understand their rights and responsibilities under this program and to avoid unnecessary confusion. Finally, several states have faced challenges in rolling out similar programs, including technical issues during the application process and other delays. This bill will provide additional time to ensure that the state system to manage claims and facilitate contributions can be adequately tested and refined before going live and avoid a repeat of past technological failures. In closing, it is our view that an additional year will provide businesses with additional time to better prepare for compliance and adjust their operations to accommodate this costly mandate. We strongly encourage members of the committee to support House File 11, and thank you all again for the opportunity to share our comments today.
Thank you. And next we have Steve Barthel, and up after that will be Bruce Newstead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Steve Bartle. I'm Director of Government Relations for the Minnesota Grocers Association. The Grocers Association has been representing Minnesota's food industry for over 125 years. We are the only trade association in the state that advocates for the entire food industry from farm to fork. Our membership consists of over 300 member companies operating more than 1,300 locations throughout Minnesota and employ over 150,000 union and non-union workers. We understand the appeal of delaying the implementation of the paid leave program for 12 months and support the postponement to give legislators time to address the concerns you've heard raised today and during the past 2 years. However, we believe that simply pushing the rollout back 1 year will not solve the fundamental flaws with this program. Without addressing the underlying issues that make the program unsustainable, we are simply kicking this time bomb down the road. We want to be absolutely clear. As an industry that has consistently offered leave options for employees, we are not arguing against the obvious benefits that leave provides. To the contrary, our members are concerned that this one-size-fits-all program will result in a lower quality leave product than most already offer to their workforce, and it will come at a substantially higher price tag. The current benefit set of the paid leave program is misaligned with its tax structure. The number of weeks benefits can be taken and the scope of usage exceed what the tax rate can sustain. No other state with paid leave laws include every business, no matter its size, with such a long of duration of leave. Additionally, adding confusion to our heavily unionized industry, the paid leave law is not clear as to how the new law requirements interact with collective bargaining agreements. We contacted the paid leave department for clarification, but they have been either unwilling or unable to provide a clear answer regarding how paid leave affects these agreements. This just scratches the surface of the challenges that this program will face unless these issues are addressed before it launches, whether that's January 1st, 2026 or January 1st, 2027. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee for the opportunity to express our support for delaying the implementation of the paid leave program. However, we urge the committee to make practical changes to address the program's clear flaws. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we will have Bruce Newstead, and after that it'll be Hannah Zinn. You may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Meckland, Lead Pinto, members of the committee. My name is Bruce Newstead with the Minnesota Retailers. We represent about 1,200 retail storefronts statewide. Our members range from family-owned retail businesses on Main Street to regional and national retailers. I'm here today to support Chair Baker's House File 11 and the delayed implementation of the paid family medical leave program by 1 year. We believe, quite frankly, that there's a large number of businesses, simply put, that just aren't ready to comply with the act on January 1, 2026. For many employers, as you've heard, and I think Mr. Beshe commented well, and especially small businesses, there's some significant uncertainty about the law and lack of awareness. And for those small businesses where the owner is also the HR manager and the legal compliance person, this program will come as a surprise, as it's not uncommon for that person, as you heard, to be managing payroll, taking care of customers, managing compliance, as well as daily operations. And for those retailers that are aware of the law, the complexity, as you just heard, of the program really creates more questions at this point than it does answers. For retailers specifically, we have some deep concerns around seasonal workers and how they'll be treated under the bill and how that language fell. And we think of that in terms of seniors and college students that are working over a summer season, then over a holiday season as well, and reaching a mandate that allows a benefit that will be confusing and actually be a disincentive for the retailer to employ people in those seasonal type jobs. We're really concerned about the consequences of moving too fast and too quickly without adequate guidance for support for implementation, and really delaying the program by 1 year would provide some much-needed time for businesses to prepare, for regulators to refine their guidance, and for lawmakers to consider necessary adjustments this session and next, especially for small businesses. I'll end just with a quick story, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Along with a colleague, I was before a group of about 80 small retailers last week. Now, none of those retailers were my members, and I don't think they were a member of any Chamber of Commerce. It was sort of a group that meets occasionally, and it's safe to say that virtually none of those 80 retailers knew anything about this program or had thought about it. So it concerns us that about 10 and a half months from now, small businesses like that will be dealing with a fairly large program that will have a significant impact on their operations as well as their workforce without much awareness. So we think there's a great opportunity to pause the program for a year and really make sure all the ducks are in a row. And really today, we're just asking for that time to get the program right. A delay really would help ensure retailers can comply effectively, continue serving their communities, and provide great jobs without unnecessary disruption. So we urge support for this delay and continued conversation around. We thank Chair Baker for the bill.
Thank you, Bruce. Next, we will have Hannah, and then after that will be Gavin Hansen. And Hannah, you may proceed.
Good morning, Chair Meckland and committee members. My name is Hannah Zinn, and I'm the Director of Government Relations for Hospitality Minnesota, which is the state's restaurant and food service, hotels and lodging, resorts and campground sectors, and more. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today in support of House File 11, Minnesota Paid Leave Law implementation being delayed by 1 year. In Minnesota, the hospitality industry makes up over 384,000 jobs, which averages out to about 12% of the state's total workforce. Our members make up businesses of varying sizes, business models, and economic impact. The industry contributes $2.3 billion in annual tax revenue to the state and more than $8.1 billion in total labor income. While we believe the goal of providing the best possible benefits to all workers, including paid family medical leave, is laudable, this program's complicated structure and unclear guidance mean our small business operators across Minnesota need more time to understand and implement the program. We believe that allowing businesses to have an additional year to adjust to these new benefit requirements will allow for greater transparency between employers and employees. The hospitality industry is made up of varying business models, from hotels and resorts to small family-owned inns to the bars and restaurants so many of us enjoy. These businesses operate differently than traditional businesses, with employers and employees often working alongside each other every single day. The notice of intent to take leave is critical to the hospitality industry. Customary practice in the industry is employees relying on each other to trade shifts when an illness or emergency comes up. But with no clear guidance in these rules, employers worry an already tight labor market will create more chaos. We hope this additional delay will allow more thoughtful and meaningful discussion to take place between industry, policymakers, and department leaders to create rules and a structure of benefits that works for everyone. Thank you for your time today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Hannah. Gavin, you'll be next. After Gavin Hansen, it'll be Kim Lewis.
Thank you, Chair Baker and members of the committee. My name is Gavin Hansen, and I serve as the Fiscal and Economic Policy Director for the Minnesota Business Partnership. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on House File 11. I will be focusing my comments primarily on the functionality of the system itself. Ensuring that a program as vital as paid family medical leave functions seamlessly from day one should not be a political issue. It is a reasonable expectation that Minnesotans will have when this law takes effect on January 1st. For thousands of employees working for some of Minnesota's most iconic companies, this is an expectation deeply ingrained. They have long received some of the most generous paid leave benefits in the country without delays, system crashes, or technical failures. Unfortunately, at this moment, we cannot confidently say that the same level of certainty and reliability will be met when the state-run program launches. I have no doubt that the staff at the Paid Leave Department with Indeed are working diligently. However, no guardrails have been put in place to ensure a smooth rollout, particularly with regard to software functionality and system capacity. There are legislative fixes to this program that still need to be addressed, but today is not about those. Today is about making sure the department has the time necessary to ensure that this program works. The Minnesota Business Partnership supports giving the department more time to ensure that when this program does launch, it does so without failure. The last thing Minnesotans want is a repeat of MNsure debacle of 2014, when a failed $100 million IT system left Minnesotans frustrated and unserved. With that in mind, MVP strongly urges the following steps before launch. Number one, conduct an independent audit of the paid leave department and program to determine whether key implementation benchmarks have been met. This could be done by the legislative auditor or a third-party auditor, a prudent and harmless step that could prevent major failures. Number two, thoroughly test and audit the technology before launch. MNsure failed because technology testing was inadequate. A third-party IT audit is not only pragmatic, it's necessary. Number three, run an extensive beta test with state employees before full implementation. This will help identify remaining technical and customer service challenges, allowing for adjustments before Minnesotans rely on the system. These practical and proactive measures must be completed before Minnesotans make this enormous shift to a state-run paid leave program and away from long-standing, generous, and effective programs offered by Minnesota companies. These actions will take time but are necessary. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Gavin. Next will be Kim Lewis, and then John Hivala will be up next.
Go ahead, Kim.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Chair Baker, and members of the committee. My name is Kim Lewis, and I represent the Minnesota School Boards Association, which is comprised of 331 school districts across Minnesota. Today, I'm also speaking on behalf of the Minnesota Association of School Administrators, the Association of Metropolitan School Districts, and the Minnesota Association of School Business Officials. We are speaking in support of House File 11 today. Together, our organizations are responsible for the administration and fiscal oversight of all school districts in Minnesota. I'd like to begin by emphasizing that our organizations recognize the valuable benefits that paid leave will bring to the workforce. In fact, our school districts as employers already negotiate these benefits with our teachers and staff through local collective bargaining agreements. As we've testified previously, our largest concern with paid leave is the cost. School districts receive all of our revenue from state and federal governments and through local taxes. Unlike businesses, we cannot increase prices to cover new or increased costs. As the law stands, the cost to provide paid leave is an unfunded mandate for school districts. A significant number of the 331 districts are currently making staffing cuts to balance budgets. No one wants to do that, but the increased costs and the increased needs are reality. Our biggest issue and question is, how do we pay for the paid leave benefit? Anoka-Hennepin, the state's largest school district, is cutting $20 million from their budget. Paid leave at its current rate of 0.88 would cost them approximately $2.5 million. Rosemont, Apple Valley, Eagan, which is the third largest school district in the state, it would cost them approximately $2.7 million. Our districts locally collectively bargain for salary and benefits. The paid leave law says employers were responsible for 50% of the payroll tax. The delay of the implementation of paid leave would allow our groups to better understand the new tax and to allow districts more time to manage the budget and moving forward. Our districts are compliant by nature. They want to abide by the law. However, they're struggling right now to ensure compliance and act in a fiscally sound manner. Additional time provides that opportunity to better understand the financial implications and resources and ensure systems are in place to execute and comply with fidelity. We want to thank you for the opportunity to weigh in on House File 11 today, and I'll be happy to stand for any questions later.
Thank you. Next, we will have John, and after that will be Steve Gilbertson.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is John Hivala. I am the Chief People Officer at Westcom. I'm here today representing Westcom and MNsure. Westcom is a 100% employee-owned company doing electrical and automation work in Duluth, Minnesota. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this morning. Firstly, let me emphasize that our business supports the principle of paid leave. We understand the importance of providing employees with the time they need to care for their health and their families. I'm sure you're all aware that there's a labor shortage in this country, especially when it comes to the blue-collar world and skilled trades. If we don't do a great job of taking care of our employee owners, we won't be in business. We believe delaying the implementation of this law is crucial for several reasons. Number one, preparation time for business. Implementing a complex, comprehensive paid leave program requires significant adjustments in operational and financial planning. Number two, there's economic impacts. When employee policies are introduced, the employees end up paying a cost for this. Mandates for businesses to comply with take from the same revenue as wages do, making less available to reward the employees who are doing the work. Number three, administrative readiness. The state needs adequate time to establish the necessary infrastructure to manage the paid leave program effectively. In conclusion, we believe that a one-year delay in its implementation is necessary to ensure that businesses can adapt effectively, the state can establish a robust administrative system, and employees can continue to receive the benefits they deserve. I want to leave you with an example of one of the many challenges we'll face. We're an electrical company, so the state requires us to have a certain ratio of journeymen to apprentices. For every one journeyman we can have 2 apprentices working with them. If a journeyman electrician has a child and decides to take 12 weeks off, we legally cannot have the apprentices work by themselves. Now we've lost 3 people for 12 weeks. Meanwhile, the important work being done by these 3 Minnesotans will not get done. There are also second and third order effects that we are unable to complete projects on time. Ships can't move, solar energy can't be generated, factories may have to idle, which affects many more people. And this isn't a hypothetical situation. I spent Christmas in the state of Washington, which has implemented paid family leave, and had the opportunity to visit with some businesses, and these are the real challenges we'll have to navigate. Thank you for your time and consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, John. Next, we'll have Steve, and then we'll go back. I actually skipped one. I apologize. Justin Turch, State Director, will lead after.
All right, thank you very much, Chair and committee members. My name is Justin Turch. I'm the State Director of the Minnesota Society of HR Management, and we have about 6,000 dues-paying members throughout Minnesota. But my real paid job is being an HR consultant in Duluth, and my office is in Representative Johnson's district, and thank you for your service in public safety, Representative. To be clear, the HR Association in Minnesota is not pro-employer, and we are not pro-employee. We are pro-employment. And we believe strongly that every Minnesotan deserves meaningful work, and every organization in our state deserves an equipped workforce. And that's what we're here to advocate for today. I'm here to support, of course, House File 11, but from the perspective of an HR professional. While we strive to stay current with changing laws and regulations, as we've seen with the Earn Sick and Safe Time, employment law can be very complex, confusing, and challenging for many organizations, especially those that don't have the benefit of somebody like me and their team, which is most Minnesota employers. It's critically important to educate and engage in dialogue with both employees and employers to ensure everyone understands the program's benefits and costs. For example, Minnesota's broader approach to paid leave law is going to affect employers mainly who are not subject to federal FMLA. Businesses with fewer employees will find themselves in uncharted territory as they have to comply with a set of regulations that they've never seen before. This raises concerns because FMLA is one of the highest litigated laws in our country. And employers will have increased insurance premiums with their employment practices insurance and increased administrative duties to ensure that they're following the intricate laws set forth in Minnesota, which are more complex than those at the federal level. Another challenge we foresee is the need for more people like me that companies have to pay for, more HR people with more experience that cost more money in order to comply with these laws. Alternatively, it's diverting funds from activities that support employees to compliance. Finally, I'd remind the committee that in small organizations, the work will most often be left to other employees, most of whom are the people these laws are meant to protect. Low-wage workers who are single parents, who work multiple jobs, and are going to be forced to work overtime to cover these shift absences of their coworkers. I think of the Rustic Inn Cafe, which is located on the North Shore, north of Two Harbors, Minnesota, with about 20 employees. I don't know if any of you have tried to use a temp agency lately, but you'll find that there's not a whole lot of temp employees. And it can be 3 to 4 months before you find a temp employee to do even the most basic tasks. With our employment rate as we are blessed with, to be quite low. That has the additional challenge of not having staff that can just show up and cover a shift. It just doesn't work that way. A one-year delay would provide an opportunity, if nothing else, to prepare companies and staff to effectively comply with this law and work more closely with HR professionals, their lawyers, and of course, the Department of Labor to do a good job in that compliance. Thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them either now or later after the hearing.
Thank you. And next will be Steve, and if you could identify yourself and proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Steve Gilbertson. I'm the owner of Electromatic. I've been running the company since 1997. We're located in Northeast Minneapolis, and we employ approximately 120 full-time employees. I'm here to show my support for House File 11, which would push back this mandate by 1 year. I'd like to start by providing just a brief history of the challenges our business has faced, as well as some of the ongoing struggles that we deal with that make this mandate more difficult for us. The events of 9/11 cut our workforce by 45% and took us 18 months to recover from. The events of 2008 with the housing market crash cut our workforce by 40% and took us 3 years to recover from. These two events don't even come close to comparing with the event of COVID pandemic in 2020. We have not recovered 4 years later. Our sales and our workforce were cut between 40 and 50%. We posted losses in 2020, 21, and 22. There seems to be a misconception with legislation that equates the number of employees to profitability in your ability to pay for something. That just simply isn't the case. In addition, our workforce has been significantly impacted. Turnover is very costly in terms of training, quality, productivity, and efficiency. The supply chain has serious issues both with materials and labor constraints, which lead to delays in manufacturing. We've lost sales because of that. Our customers have looked for alternate sources because of that. We've experienced record inflation, which has impacted our raw material by 24% and continues to increase our cost of labor. Our property taxes last year were raised 21%, with a proposal of 10% again this year. Our health insurance now is the second largest cost we have behind our payroll. We find it difficult to compete with Wisconsin, Iowa, North and South Dakota, and I have competitors in each of those states. Our price increases are met with fierce opposition from our customers. Often they're looking to cost down the products they buy from us, and often when we can't cost them down, they move those products to other manufacturers, either in other states, sometimes low-cost countries. Minnesota is in the top 3 or 4 states being the most costly to operate in. Many business owners that I associate with and talk to have a significant concern for the state of their business. This paid medical leave payroll tax is kind of a one-size-fits-all and will just fuel the fire that we're currently dealing with. This should absolutely be postponed until 2027, providing more time for businesses to figure out how they're going to deal with this and recover from the cost of the effects of COVID. This would also give the legislature additional time to go in and look at more affordable and more efficient ways to manage this. I remind you that these type of cost increases are not borne by the companies. These are always passed on. These are always passed on, right? Thank you. The cost simply gets passed on through higher prices, and business will automate, reduce workforce, cut services, relocate, or they'll fail. I thank you for the opportunity and to support this File 11. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll have Jeremy Schmidt and Ms. Lorenz will be attending, and after that will be Aaron Dittmer Thompson. If you can identify yourself and proceed.
Start whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jeremy Schmidt. I'm the superintendent of Becker Public Schools. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today with you about Paid Family Medical Leave Act, which has the potential to critically impact schools and communities. My goal today is to provide insight into the challenges this policy presents, offer practical recommendations for improving its implementation, and express my support for House File 11 to delay implementation by 1 year. Let me begin by saying that the Paid Family Medical Leave Act has some very good intentions and benefits, as noted in testimony and the support letters that I've seen online. However, its implementation raises critical questions about financial sustainability, operational feasibility, and unintended consequences for public schools. I recommend that the state develop clear guidelines to harmonize paid family leave with existing policies. Financial support or exemptions for districts should also be considered to avoid undue strain on our budgets. Public employers like schools and other government entities, it's essential for implementation to align with the start of our fiscal year, so I also recommend a July 1 implementation for those organizations. This would provide school districts with the necessary time to plan for funding and policy adjustments rather than forcing a mid-year financial reallocations that could negatively impact our students and staff. The financial impact of this mandate is also a serious concern. Paid family medical leave is expected to cost our district approximately $150,000 per year. And then with a January 1, 2026 implementation date, it would cost us $75,000 of that. This is equivalent to multiple teachers on our staff. Given our current flexible time off system, wouldn't these funds be better spent on educating our students and directly supporting them? Another concern is how this policy interacts with employers and employees who hold multiple jobs. If an individual qualifies for leave from a public school district but also works another job, does that mean they receive paid benefits for the school position while continuing to earn income elsewhere? This creates a fairness issue and an administrative burden that must be addressed before implementation. Schools already provide flexible employment opportunities for individuals who need flexibility. We have substitute positions for that purpose. And this allows greater control over schedules, and meaning a separate paid leave program may not be necessary for these roles. It's unclear how this program would interact with substitute teachers or other intermittent and seasonal employees. Similarly, we must consider how this program will apply to those receiving unemployment benefits, and Ms. Lorenz will speak more to that. Given the complexity of employment arrangements and existing benefits in public education, a one-size-fits-all approach simply does not work. I urge the legislature to use carve-outs for employers like schools that already provide substantial leave programs and flexibility, allowing them to continue managing their leave structures without unnecessary disruption. This would ensure that the policy supports those who need it most without penalizing those who have developed strong employee support systems. In closing, the intent behind paid family medical leave is commendable. Its broad application does present significant financial and operational challenges for public employers, particularly schools. Without adjustments, this policy risks creating administrative burdens, disrupting existing benefits, and introducing complexities that are difficult to navigate. I strongly urge the legislature to consider delaying implementation for schools and government entities until the start of their fiscal year, ensuring that districts have the time to prepare for this. Additionally, more clarity is needed on how the policy will interact with the employees who hold multiple jobs, work as substitutes, or receive unemployment benefits. A more tailored approach is necessary for paid family medical leave to serve its intended purpose without creating undue financial or administrative strain. The complexities of different employee types, full-time, part-time, seasonal, substitutes, must be accounted for to prevent disruptions in staffing and budget allocations. By implementing a phased, flexible model that's fully funded by the state, we can protect employees while maintaining the stability and efficiency of our school systems.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. I'm Jennifer Lorenz, and I'm the HR Director for Becker Public Schools. As noted in past testimonies regarding some of these leave laws that are being rolled out and the frustrations and hardships that it's causing us on an everyday basis, I am feeling the same types of fears that did become reality when ESST was implemented. I hope that today I'm going to provide you some daily struggles that I am foreseeing coming down the pike with this new law, and I hope that we can extend this until you are able to provide us answers on how this is going to be implemented, what our expectations are at the ground level. So the first concern that I have is the impact on accumulated leave and our sick leave banks. Our teachers have on average 63 days of sick time accumulated. Over almost half of them have 100 or more days accumulated. So what's happening with those days? They're not going to be able to use those days. They have worked 20, 30 years in our district to build up these banks. there's also the option to have a sick leave bank as a whole teacher bargaining unit where they have additional paid leave. What is going to happen to that? They're not going to give up those days freely. Are we going to have to negotiate that? Or is the state going to be paying them out for those days? That's going to be a real concern and frustration for these employees that have worked and been at work and saved these days for this exact reason. And also, going forward, when we're negotiating future contracts, is there going to be requirements from the state coming down saying that we need to get rid of these sick leave banks and the amount of time that we're giving them through their negotiated bargaining agreements, because they will not be able to use that many days? Number two, the financial and administrative burdens. There are so many unanswered questions, just as there was with earned sick and safe time. I just want to give you an example of what I'm envisioning this looking like. So I have an employee who submits PFMLA requests to the state. The state then is going to have to come back to the employer to figure out how much their salary is. So we are going to have to communicate that back. Once they get that information, they're going to have to do this confusing calculation from what it sounds like, because it's not going to be the same for everybody. The more you make, the less amount you're going to get reimbursed. So once they figure out that calculation, they now have to bring that back to the employer to tell us how much they paid the employee, for what dates they paid the employee, because the employer is expected to supplement any underpayment with their sick leave balance. So I'm just wondering what that timeline looks like, and how is this person getting paid during this time? Are we paying them and then we have to ask for reimbursement? There are just so many questions, and I've worked with the state before, and it is not a fast process. I think we can all admit that. The third thing is the double dipping or possibly triple dipping. All of our employees are paid year-round. They work 9 months, teachers, paras, food service, but now because of summer unemployment, they are all getting paid year-round. And I'm hearing that our 9-month employees can apply for PFMLA in the summer when they're not working. So I would like to know how that's going to work. Is the state going to be talking with the unemployment division and figuring out that they're paying them and they're paying them? And are we supposed to supplement them for their
Ms.
sick
Lorenz,
leave?
we need to keep moving. If you could
Okay.
wrap it up. Thank you.
So I hope that this just shows you the daily struggles that I fear is coming at us, and we need answers before we can actually roll this out. So I thank you for your time. Sorry I was long-winded. But I just hope that we can put a hold on this until we have answers to all of these questions.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you later.
Thank you. Next, we will have Aaron Dittmer-Thomas, and then after that, we have we missed one earlier, so on the list, so Sarah Mullins will be after that. Thank you. If you'll identify yourself for the tape and proceed. No, there was just one that was missing on the list that you'll be next.
Morning. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Erin Thompson. I'm an English teacher at Egan High School and the mother of a 9-month-old daughter named Judy. I'm here this morning imploring you to not delay the implementation of Minnesota paid leave law. I had 10 days of paid maternity leave. When I began teaching 7 years ago, at 28 years old in Champaign, Illinois, a mentor teacher took me aside and asked if I was going to have kids. She told me, "Your sick days aren't sick days. That's your maternity leave. You can stay home sick when your kids are grown." So I saved my sick days. My husband, Nick, defended his dissertation and accepted a job in Minnesota. We packed up our house in Illinois, I applied for my Minnesota teacher's license, and I lost all those accumulated days in the move. Back to square one. When we decided to start our family, I had trouble conceiving. Anyone who struggled with infertility knows that means a lot of appointments. I effectively had to choose between using days on appointments to navigate my PCOS and saving days for a hoped-for future maternity leave. When I finally got pregnant, I had 12 days. You can bet I guarded them jealously. I delayed doctor-recommended care throughout my pregnancy. When we learned Judy was breech, I couldn't avoid using sick time. As I was in the hospital for an ECV, an incredibly painful procedure, I was in the waiting room stressed out that I was burning a day of leave. At the appointment for the second attempt, when we learned it was going to be impossible to flip her because her cord was wrapped around her neck, I cried because I would need a C-section, but I also cried because I had wasted 2 days on a failed procedure. Judy was born 2 weeks early by emergency C-section. I had 10 days of paid leave to be with her. 5 of those days was spent in the hospital. It wasn't enough. Giving birth is not a health-neutral event. I couldn't walk down the hall after 10 days, let alone run a classroom of 33 teenagers. Teachers devote their lives and careers to serving our communities and nurturing the minds that will serve society in the future. We take care of the community's children. We deserve time to take care of our own. There is a teacher shortage sweeping the country. If Minnesota wants to attract and retain high-quality teachers, the state needs to be a place where teachers are treated with dignity and respect, where we can imagine building our family's future. At Egan High School, we teach our students to lead by example. If Minnesota wants to be a leader in education, if the state values its families, we need to protect paid family leave and not delay the implementation of this important program that Minnesotans are planning on accessing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will have Sarah Mullins, after which we will have Claudia Gordon. Sarah, if you will identify yourself and proceed.
Good morning, Chair and committee members. My name is Sarah Mullins. I'm a chemist, and I live in St. Paul. I am excited for the paid family medical leave program to start on January 1st, 2026, and I oppose any delay to the program start. A few years ago, late on a Saturday night, I received one of those calls that disrupts your life. My dad was in the hospital. For 73 years, he had been the picture of good health, and now he was having seizures. After many tests, a brain surgery, a biopsy, we learned that it was a glioblastoma, an inoperable version of that brain tumor. Radiation and chemo didn't stop the growth, and within 3 months from the diagnosis, he passed away. It was a real shock to me and to my family. My mom was just recovering from a hip replacement surgery, and she couldn't manage the day-to-day needs on her own. I had to travel back and forth to Kansas City to help with everything from doctor's appointments to changes in the house to accommodate my dad's new needs, everything from just unsteady and unbalanced, all kinds of things going haywire when you have a brain tumor. So I was lucky that this happened at the end of the year. A new calendar year came about. That meant that I had a new allotment of vacation days that I could spend to travel back and forth to Kansas City to do this. But overall, managing my time away was so much harder than it needed to be. It was a week-to-week negotiation with my boss, when I would have preferred, and I actually asked if I could take an extended leave. And, my story is, it's sad for me personally and what I went through. But as I've talked to many others, this is actually really, really common. Having to take care of an aging parent, this is what happens to human bodies, right? And we don't get to choose the timing of it. So, and I know that this is happening to people all across the state, all kinds of jobs and income levels and situations. And the key thing here is I didn't get to choose the timing, right? And it was, the thing I missed out on was actually any quality time with my dad before he passed away, because every single minute I had to squeeze in for the care, right? The medical care and the appointments. So a different employer or boss might have granted the extended leave I needed. Paid family medical leave as a state policy brings consistency so that employees know what we can request and we can engage in that. So I really value that foundation. I think that really helps employees tremendously. It helps us care for our families in these emergencies while also being able to retain our ability to do our jobs and return to the work that we train to do. So I encourage you to implement the paid family medical leave on the original timeline. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Claudia, after which we will then have a Zoom participant, Jessica Peterson White. If you could identify yourself and proceed.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. I am here to oppose delaying paid family medical leave, which is supposed to start January 1st. My name is Claudia Gordon. I'm from St. Paul. And this is my story. I have a son, Hunter, who is 40 years old. He is married, has a daughter who is 13 and a half, has a son who is soon to be 11, and has another son who is going to be 8. 6 years ago, he was diagnosed with glioblastoma, brain cancer, grade 4, and aggressive. He underwent surgery within 2.5 days of his diagnosis. He was on chemotherapy. He did radiation. And for 2.5 years, he wore an Optune device on his head. But that became uncomfortable because then he had shingles on his face. So between the two, it was miserable for him. His oncologist said, "You can take off the Optune device if you want to, Hunter." And he said, "What do the studies say?" And she said, "There are no studies." Glioblastoma victims, patients, usually last 12 to 18 months from diagnosis at Hunter's age. 5% last 5 years. Hunter is a miracle. But when he was diagnosed, he started having aura seizures afterwards. After his chemo, after his radiation, after everything was done, he started having aura seizures. And he cannot work. So he is on disability, but his wife works full-time. He has aura seizures daily and multiple times during the day. And so far, medication is not helping him. So we are hoping for a miracle for Hunter. His 2 sisters relocated here. We are Team Hunter as a family, going to be there for him. But if that miracle starts to fade, we need to have the ability, the chance to take care of Hunter at home, in his home. If the miracle starts to fade, Hunter deserves the chance to be cared for by his family in his home. It is still almost a year away from the original implementation of this paid family medical leave. 2 years is what this bill would authorize it to be delayed by. I don't know if we have 2 years. Please give us a chance to care for my son, for his family, in his home. And please say no to delaying this bill. Thank you. And I do have time left over if anybody has questions too.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good luck with Hunter.
Thank you. Next, we will have Jessica Peterson White on Zoom, after which we will have Sarah Piepenberg. If you could identify yourself, Jessica, and proceed.
Thank you. It looks like my video is off, but anyway, thank you all for hearing from me today and allowing me to testify remotely. Great, I can start my video now. Thank you. I'm Jessica Peterson White. I own Content Bookstore and Kids Content in Northfield, and I serve on the Northfield City Council. And I'm here today to ask you to allow the state to continue moving forward on schedule with our paid family and medical leave program, which small businesses and our employees so desperately need. When my son Thorsten was born in 2016, my business was pretty new and I budgeted to have about a month at home, and then I eased back into work. It was too expensive to cover all my hours with other people, so I spent many days at the shop with a baby in my arms or with him napping in the baby bucket behind the counter. Lyra, my youngest, was born in March of 2020, and while I'd planned carefully so that I could be home for 10 weeks after that, with the pandemic, my maternity leave lasted just a week. And then I was working harder than ever to make sure my bookstore survived that crisis. Self-employment has given me flexibility, but I've made painful trade-offs between investing in my business and caring for my babies. In 2018, the city of Northfield passed a 6-week paid family leave policy for city employees. We're really proud of our policy, but we also know it's not enough. 6 weeks isn't enough to be at home with a newborn, and it's often not enough to care for folks with the kind of complex care situations that you've heard from others about today. We're constrained as a city, as an employer, because our pool is small. A statewide fund is exactly what we need to protect us all from big variations in costs. Some folks that you've heard from today who claim to represent the interests of Minnesota businesses will try to tell you that the statewide insurance pool that this bill creates for paid family and medical leave is somehow bad for business. From my perspective, as a small employer and a retailer, it's just the opposite. My business needs this program in order to compete on a level playing field, and we need it urgently. I provide great jobs, and many of my employers in their 20s and 30s would love to keep working for me and have kids, but they're likely to leave us to work for a much larger business when they do, because those big businesses can provide paid leave. They have a bigger pool. A statewide program is the right tool to help my business compete for the best employees. Paid leave would ensure that when my employees need to care for their families, they can then return ready for work, while my business has the resources to cover their responsibilities, making my business stronger and more resilient. I think it's short-sighted at best to claim that this program represents only a cost to businesses like mine. The folks who are referring to this as just a big expense aren't quantifying the cost they're already suffering from losing great employees when they have a baby or when people need to care for a sick relative. We've heard today from some testifiers that businesses they represent can't bear the cost of allowing employees to stay home when they need to at all, apparently. So what are they doing now? Do they not hire people with children? Do they not hire people of childbearing age? Do they, as we heard today, ask people if they plan to have a baby before they hire them? That would be illegal. Or do they just expect their employees to come to work a week after giving birth? I don't know what kind of backup plan these folks have, but it's unclear to me how it's working out for their workforce in the current state of things. I view this as this paid family medical leave program as a tool I desperately need and that other small businesses need, and I'm happy to invest in it because it will provide stability to my workforce. Furthermore, contrary to some of the narratives presented here today, my employees understand very well what will be available with this program, and they're eager to have access to this resource. We're already facing costs in so many ways around folks taking leave and having, not really as a small business, having the resources to cover those. We just need a good way to handle those costs sustainably, and this program would provide that. I hope we can all agree that babies shouldn't go to daycare 2 weeks or 6 weeks after they're born, and it's not humane to force a new mom back to work at that point either, but most working parents don't have a choice right now, especially those working for small businesses, because they can't afford to skip a few paychecks. Employees at small businesses shouldn't have to do this, while folks who work for bigger businesses don't. That's bad for families. It's bad for business. It's bad for our economy. We need a system that keeps family income steady during those precious early months, and we need it as soon as possible. Implementation of this program is on track and well underway. We can't afford 2 more years of lacking this program. Please allow it to continue to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Sarah, and then on the deck, we have another Zoom participant, Lynn, pardon me if I'm getting this wrong, but Gort.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, my name is Sarah Piepenberg, and I am the co-owner of Vinaigrette, a family-owned retail food store located in Southwest Minneapolis. I am proud to be a small business owner that helped lead the fight for paid leave over the last 8 years. I testified in dozens of committee hearings, was part of countless hours of legislative debate, and was thrilled when the bill was signed into law in 2023. I got into this fight because of my employee, Linda, and many of you committee members have heard our story, so I will try to make it brief. She fell. She needed to be out for 12 weeks. If she went without her paycheck from us while she was out recovering, she was going to have to choose between putting food on the table and making rent. We paid her while she was out because it was the right thing to do. Paying her saved me money in having to hire and train a new employee, but caused us to be late on our commercial rent and our house payment. It was a real struggle. Linda, however, came back twice the amazing employee she already was because she was allowed to heal without the stress of finances. My story with Linda continued as she went on to be diagnosed with ALS, and I became her primary caregiver. I would get up daily and drive from Northeast Minneapolis to Chanhassen to get her out of bed, dress her, toilet her, make her breakfast, and then go to Vinaigrette to work. To travel back to Chanhassen to put her to bed at night. When it became painfully evident that ALS was taking her body, we had to search for long-term care. Long-term care turned into having to transfer her to a hospice house where she died May of 2021. I can't help but think of how different the end of her life would have been if there was a paid leave policy that would have allowed some of her family members to care for her. It shouldn't have been a battle for her family to take time off to hold Linda's hands as she took her last breath. Minnesota paid leave will help ensure Minnesotans don't need to choose between financial stability and being there for their families. In addition, changing the implementation timeline introduces new uncertainty for small business owners like me. The rest of the world and 12 other states have already figured out how to provide paid leave. Minnesota is just over 10 months away from full implementation. Families are already counting on this benefit. New parents who give birth or adopt a baby as soon as right now will be eligible for leave starting January 1st, 2026. Delaying would be cruel to the thousands of Minnesotans who are counting on this leave, and it isn't necessary. We have a child care crisis in Minnesota. This paid leave policy would lift the newborn care burden for the first 3 months, possibly 6 months. Black women are the most gainfully employed population, not a narrative we've ever really been told. Being the most gainfully employed population, 80% are the primary income earner as well as the primary caregiver. A baby born to a working Black mother has a 29% increased risk of death due to failure to thrive simply because their mother goes back to work too soon and without adequate child care. Minnesota passed a paid leave policy that will end that statistic. Do not delay implementation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, we'll have Lynn Gort on Zoom, after which we will have Roger Sheldon on Zoom as well. You may proceed and identify yourself for the tape, please.
Hello, good morning. This is Chair Baker and committee members. My name is Lynn Gert, and I'm the co-owner of Northern Water Smokehouse in Duluth. We have been in business for 27 years and currently have 50 employees. And we ask you to continue on the existing timeline, and we oppose House File 11. Owning a food-based hospitality and retail business is extremely challenging and stressful. We have managed over the years, especially during COVID, by focusing on our employees and on employee retention. This is really key to our business model and why we tend to have a reputation for product consistency, food safety, and excellent customer service. We could use the paid family and leave program right now to offset the financial burden for employees with longer-term health challenges. We do our best to support our employees because it's the right thing to do. We want them and their families to be healthy, but also to retain them. But this is very difficult for us to do, and we are unable to offer anything as extensive as this benefit. The design of this program took years of careful consideration, debate, and extensive analysis of the cost, the benefit, and the analysis of risk shared between employers and employees. As a smaller employer, we feel that our cost of this benefit is reasonable and that the benefit for our employees far outweighs the cost. We feel that this is one of the most consequential pro-business programs developed in the state in decades, and the implementation in 2026 provides another year for us to get ready. Our business perspective is not aligned with many of those shared today. We are not anxious about how this program will be implemented. We also think that DEED will have time to address the important labor-related questions that were asked here today. We do not see the need to delay the implementation of this critical program. We do not need an additional year to implement systems of compliance. As a business owner, our employees and their families need this benefit as soon as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, Roger Sheldon, if you can identify yourself when you proceed, and then Guadalupe Lopez will be after that.
Hello, Chair Baker, Lead Pinto, representatives and guests. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Yes, we can.
Good deal. I'm Roger Sheldon, a veteran of about 40 years in newborn intensive care pediatrics, otherwise known as neonatology. I'm here to speak for my favorite people, the just born children and their families, some of the people who need paid family and medical leave the most, and to share the message of the Minnesota Prenatal to 3 Coalition, Doctors for Early Childhood, and the Minnesota Rally to Read, among others. This program was passed and promised by you, the House, the Senate, and the governor to hundreds of thousands of parents and relatives across the state. People are depending on this great new approach to do right by their newborns and sick relatives. People are planning their families and making life-altering decisions based on this promise. We have only one chance to give young children a healthy start in life. More than 60,000 new Minnesotans are born each year, needing this paid family and medical leave statute. If there are defects or adjustments that need to be made, I submit that it is your responsibility to do that, not to delay the improvements. If we delay, we deny those 60,000 families the opportunity, and we take away their child's benefit. Sure, it costs money. That's because it's highly valuable for the child, the parents, and our whole state. Early childhood development and successful parenting are most dependent on the first 3 to 4 years. This program is a multi-purpose way to address parent attachment, literacy. Have you checked your district's reading scores lately? Numerous health risks, juvenile crime, and incarceration. You may say you want to fix all these issues. This delay will delay all those fixes. Your institutional legislative horizon is about 25 years too short to evaluate how to help the earliest childhood population and improve how much they will be able to achieve. Think big, think long, think 25 to 30 years long, when these children will be most of our workforce and our economic promise. Listen to the kids and to the many states, both red and blue, and many other countries who have successfully implemented these policies. Your concerns are likely solved by those places. Ask how they did it. It's a competitive advantage for the state and a competitive advantage for the nation. Let's get going so your reports and evaluations in the bill can proceed. We are doing a truly poor job for our youngest children. This is the logical first step. Let's get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you. After Guadalupe, we will have another Zoom participant, Reverend Corrine Friedman Ellis. If you would proceed by identifying yourself. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. Jauno Benesi Quindijna Cosme Gondondem. My name is Guadalupe Lopez. I'm the Executive Director of Violence Free Minnesota. I represent our 90-member programs across the state of Minnesota that provide direct services to domestic violence victims and survivors across the state. The services include shelter safety, planning, counseling, legal systems, navigation, and other wraparound services. I want to share a statistic with you. If you look around the room, and just in this room, 1 out of 3 women experience domestic violence or sexual violence. 1 out of 4 men will experience sexual violence or in domestic violence, and those are national statistics. And we are just in this room if we just look around. I want to say that I'm here today to testify in opposition of House File 11. Domestic violence victims will benefit greatly from paid safety leave. Research has shown that a vast majority of people who experience domestic violence have financial abuse as part of their experience. Limiting survivors to economic options limits their opportunities to access safety and contributes to the establishment of the abuse party's power and control over the survivor. Not having safety leave available to survivors creates a threat of financial instability and prevents survivors from accessing services that can help address immediate and potentially life-threatening situations. We do a report every year around the Intimate Partner Homicide Report that shows every death that we record in Minnesota. Obtain legal and other assistance needed to flee abusive situations and to secure stability and after leaving an abusive relationship in order to avoid the risk of returning to abusive situation. I also read a report from the National Domestic Hotline that 70%, and this is an old report, but it's like there's nothing current as of right now. In 2005, they reported over 70% of workforce do not have plans for survivors escaping or surviving violence. So I just want to also add that in there. The Paid Family Medical Leave Program establishes vital support for survivors of domestic abuse and should not be delayed. It provides survivors with the employment security and financial protection they need to address the health and safety for themselves and their families. We urge you to vote no on House File 11. Miigwech.
Thank you. Next will be our last Zoom participant, after which we will have Bernie Burnman on deck. If you could identify yourself and proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Good morning. My name is Corinne Friedman Ellis, and I serve as lead pastor at Peace United Church of Christ in Duluth. I'm also a mom to 2 amazing kids, ages 6 and 3, and I'm here to testify in opposition to House File 11. As a minister, a parent, and a person of faith, I believe every person deserves the dignity of paid family and medical leave, and that we shouldn't have to wait any longer. We as Minnesotans are resilient. We make it work. We don't complain. But I'm going to complain on our behalf right now. We have been fighting for this policy for a decade at this point, and we need it to roll out on its promised timeline. I started testifying in favor of paid family and medical leave 6 years ago when I was an associate pastor in St. Paul with a 3-month-old strapped to my chest, coming off my own lucky 12 weeks of paid leave and feeling in my bones how impossible it would have been to return to work 2 weeks after giving birth, like so many Minnesota moms have to. Later, I ended up leaving the workforce for 1.5 years to focus on my children's health. I know that a statewide leave policy could have kept me working. Right now, I supervise 8 staff members, all hard workers, gifted at what they do and crucial to our ministry here. One of those staff members is the mom of a toddler with all the associated daycare illnesses who manages her own chronic illness. And on top of all of that, her partner was diagnosed last summer with stage 3 cancer. We've worked hard to support her and keep her employed here and paid consistently, but I can't tell you how many times I've said this year, if only our paid family and medical leave program were up and running. It would have saved the church, our staff member, and me as a supervisor so much time and stress, and we believe money as well. Paid family and medical leave helps churches, nonprofits, and small businesses support and retain their employees and also live into their values despite tight budgets. Paid family and medical leave touches all of our lives. Unfortunately, I don't think that the bill before us now is about delaying paid family and medical leave. I worry that it's about creating enough opposition against it to get rid of it altogether. I urge you not to delay the rollout of this crucial policy so that all Minnesota families can thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Ms. Burnham, after which will be Ben Baglio. If you could prepare and if you identify yourself and proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Bernie Burnham, and I am the president of the Minnesota AFL-CIO, a federation of unions who represent more than 300,000 working people in every corner of our state. It's on behalf of these union members and every working Minnesotan that I speak against House File 11. Minnesota's paid leave program, set to take effect next year, did not appear out of thin air. This program is more than a decade in the making, thanks to advocates across the state, many who are here in this room this morning. After passing multiple legislative committees and chambers over that decade, it finally reached the governor's desk in 2023. Then, in 2024, modifications were made at the legislature to ensure this program is ready to go on January 1st, 2026. This legislation has been one of the most vetted and dissected pieces of legislation in state history. We understood, however, that the state needed time to properly implement this groundbreaking policy. With 11 months remaining for the paid leave program to take effect, working Minnesotans are ready for the peace of mind that comes from knowing we will have the freedom to care for ourselves and the people we love without sacrificing a paycheck. Working people understand that no program is going to be perfect, and if after it takes effect, there are things that need to be looked at, tweaks can then be made, but let's get it off the ground. There's a lot of things we could not do, and nothing would ever happen. This is important to keep moving. However, we see the delay in this bill for what it is, a veiled attempt backed by some employers from big business, counties, and school districts to take away paid leave from working Minnesotans before we even have it. For those who are not understanding how paid family medical leave interacts with collective bargaining agreements, I invite you to give us a call. We are happy, and I'm sure our affiliated unions would be happy to sit down with you as well. We urge this committee to reject House File 11 today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Ben Baglio, and then Sarah Gagelhoff will be on deck. If you identify yourself and please proceed.
Good morning, Chairman, committee members. Thank you for allowing me to testify this morning on behalf of the Minnesota Nurses Association, or MNA, which represents more than 22,000 nurses working at the bedside in hospitals across our state, which rounds out to about 4 out of every 5 nurses in Minnesota hospitals today. MNA was proud to be part of the coalition that worked for years to pass the paid family medical leave program. Among other reasons, MNA supported establishing the paid leave program for 3 big reasons. First, the paid leave program provides relief to our members, many of which would not otherwise have access to anywhere near this amount of paid leave. With 15,000 nurses across the metro and Duluth preparing to enter contract negotiations this year with the largest healthcare systems in our state, I can promise you that this is the case. They need you to protect it. They wouldn't otherwise have that leave. And as President Burnham just said, frankly, we're pretty sure the employers have the legal resources available to them to understand what was in the law around collective bargaining. It's pretty clear. The second big reason why we support paid leave as well as earned safe and sick time is because they keep us safer. Nurses, everyone else in the hospital, everyone else in the community, it keeps us healthier and safer. But you can't do it unless you can afford it, and no one should ever go into financial ruin because they, their family members, which includes chosen family, got sick. And the third big reason we support paid leave is because we know that it's the best way to provide working families with the flexibility needed not only to maintain secure employment, but to do things like family planning and having children. People are planning on starting to try to have kids next month because of the rollout. I hope you all take that into consideration. We hear a lot of talk about needing a robust workforce from the employer groups, but they're certainly doing a lot to prevent the growth of working families. I think this attention and time would be better served focus on supporting and retaining workers, which is something has been neglected, certainly across healthcare, but across the workforce as well. Make no mistake, the paid leave program will help more nurses return to the bedside after going on leave. Gutting the program or delaying it by a year unnecessarily will do just the opposite. It doesn't really surprise us at this point to see hospitals also working to gut paid leave, given how hospital executives treat nurses, although, again, we'd encourage them to work more on supporting nurses rather than fighting them here on this issue. But it would surprise us is if we saw legislators that typically have sided with working families in labor doing a 180 this session and siding with the big employer groups this time. I want to conclude by reiterating that 15,000 union M&A nurses are in the process for preparing for contract negotiations with most of the largest hospital systems in our state this year. Those contracts are being bargained, and the delay of a year to the paid family medical leave program undermines those bargaining efforts. It jeopardizes nurses who have personally planned accordingly for this benefit to take place, and it only further tips the scales in favor of the bosses in this year's negotiations. I hope that that's not what the legislature chooses to do. In closing, we oppose unnecessary delays to implementation as well as any carve-outs. And remember, chosen family is family, and no employer is too small to ensure dignity for their workers. Mr. Chair, members, thank you for your time. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Next, we will have Sarah, after which we'll have Jackie Lane. Sarah, if you can identify yourself and please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Baker and members of the committee. My name is Sarah Gangelhoff, and I'm the Director of Advocacy and Innovation at the Women's Foundation of Minnesota. We are part of the coalition that supported paid leave, and we're here today to oppose its delay. In the past 42 years, we have invested more than $54 million in communities across Minnesota and advanced policy to create a state where women, girls, and their families thrive. We know from our research in our Status of Women and Girls in Minnesota report and from listening to communities that families and medical leave is key to long-term success for both individuals and for the greater economy, as it actually leads to increased productivity and labor force participation. Economic studies show that access to paid leave increases the likelihood that workers will return to their jobs instead of dropping out of the labor force entirely. Mothers with access to leave can also have a positive impact on their children's health and development. Many of Minnesota's mothers are the primary breadwinners for the family. 58% of Black mothers, 46% of Native American mothers, 41% of Latina mothers are the heads of their households. And yet their work is not only poorly compensated, it lacks basic benefits. Our data shows women are concentrated in low-wage occupations like service industries, where benefits are scarce, the work is hard, and pay is low. And women of color dominate these fields. Barbara Ehrenreich called women in low-wage occupations anonymous donors to society for what they personally sacrifice to work in these sectors. Now this bill is asking them to sacrifice once again by waiting another year before paid leave is implemented. To achieve economic security and a fair economic playing field, we must value the work and the roles that women provide by compensating, at minimum, her right to take a leave and return to the workplace without financial penalty or loss of opportunity. Investing in women now benefits children, families, and the entire community in the long term. Women in Minnesota are ready for paid leave, and we do not support pushing back the launch date. We must support our workers in the labor force and our state's economic growth now by not delaying them family and medical leave. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Jackie Lane, after which will be Summer Spica. If you can identify yourself and please proceed.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, my name is Jackie Lane, and I am here as a parent and representative of Take Action Minnesota to urge you to support working families by preserving the 2026 launch date of the paid family and medical leave program. The delay as proposed in this bill is unnecessary and not in Minnesotans' best interest. After having my first child, Ren, I took out student loans to survive the 12 weeks that I stayed at home with her. Combined with 3 months of lost wages and interest, my maternity leave totals at a cost of $17,000. Money I did not have, money that produces the next generation of workers for Minnesota's economy. Then at 16 months old, Ren was diagnosed with medical conditions that required 3 surgeries, 3 months in a full body cast, 3 months of physical therapy 3 times a week, all so that she could take her first steps at 2 years old. I left the workforce to care for her. Despite a string of academic achievements and being accepted into a dual degree master's PhD program, I am unable to return to the workforce without the security of paid family and medical leave due to my daughter's potential need for future surgeries. With or without a formal education, how many parents are excluded from contributing their talents and dedication to the workforce based on unpredictable circumstances? But I'm not here just to tell my story. I am here as a leader with Take Action and Minnesota United Parents, where over the past 2 years, we have mobilized thousands of parents in support of policies that families desperately need: paid sick days, paid family and medical leave, and affordable childcare. Paid family and medical leave is one of the most meaningful ways we can support working families. I needed this program back in 2020 as much as it is needed in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you. And next will be Summer, after which we will then move to member questions. Just a reminder, we do have this room after session today, so we will come back up roughly at 5. Please identify yourself and proceed.
Hello, my name is Summer Spica. I live in St. Paul, and I am a union organizer and a home care worker. I am here on behalf of SEIU Healthcare Minnesota in Iowa. Our union represents over 55,000 healthcare workers around the state. We work in hospitals, clinics, nursing homes, and self-directed home care. We oppose House File 11 because it is an unneeded delay of a critical benefit. 1 year may seem like a short time, but if you are a new mother waking up multiple times a night to feed your crying baby, a year is very long. Now add a full-time job on top of sleepless nights, and it gets much longer. It is likely that over 60,000 women will give birth in 2026. Most of them will want to use paid leave. Many have made important decisions about finances, marriage, and jobs because they expect to use paid leave. This bill derails those plans. I know how important the first year of motherhood can be. I got involved in organizing home care workers because I didn't get leave after having a baby when I was a PCA. In 2014, I was a PCA and I was pregnant with my youngest daughter, Amalia. Like most home care workers, before we got a union, I didn't have any paid leave at all, and I only made $10.50 an hour. I had worked hard and saved as much as I could, but I could only afford 2 weeks without a paycheck. That included the 4 days I was in the hospital after my C-section. So 2 weeks after major surgery, I was back to work as a PCA. Being a PCA is hard physical work when you are in good shape. Bending, lifting, bathing, feeding, not to mention the other changes your body is going through. After surgery, this work is brutal. No one should have to make that choice, even for just another year. This delay is unnecessary. Our union works with employers large and small all over the state. We have been talking to employers about the new benefit. Some employers are eager to roll this out, and others don't like it. But no employer has told us that they can't meet the deadline or that we should not expect it to start on time. We have also worked closely with the Department of Employment and Economic Development to educate our members. They tell us they can start on time, and we have been checking their progress. If there were grounds for delay, we would raise them. America is the only country with no paid leave for workers. Minnesotans have waited too long already. We don't need to delay it anymore.
Thank you. Now we will go to member questions. Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Baker, Chair Baker, for bringing this and this being our first bill, because I think that from the testimony we heard, it reminds us how important this policy is and how it is rooted in the lives of people. I've been hearing this bill since I first started in the legislature. This will be my third term, and when we passed it in May 2023, and I just, especially to the folks who testified about their stories, I have a lot of questions about that I think I'll save until after the break, but I did want to, particularly to Sarah Mullins and Claudia Gordon, the thing about this bill is, and this policy is, we all have our stories. And I remember being 29, and my dad was dying of multiple myeloma, and he was 59, and it was very sudden. Like, it was something he got, and and we were down at Mayo, and I was in law school, and my sister was an ICU nurse, so she was 24, and she was burning through her PTO, and I remember sitting on a bench, having a conversation where we got really bad news, and trying to figure out how she was going to pay for the time that she needed when I went back to law school to stay with my dad. And we were lucky in that, I had spent some time at a law firm, and my dad kicked in a little bit, but most people don't have that. And just having to have that conversation, well, what you really wanted to be focusing on is that you had months left with your dad, was really hard. And nobody should have to go through that. And we have the means and the policy to make sure people don't have to go through that. And so that was in 2009. The idea of waiting one more year, when we still have 10 months to figure out all this stuff, is something we shouldn't tolerate. So I appreciate the bill. I appreciate Representative Frazier, all the work you've done on it, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. I don't see any more questions. If
Mr. Chair, yeah, so I think I know we've got a whole bunch of questions and we're trying to sort of figure out about timing. Did you the chair want us to keep on going till 10? Did you at this point, we're going to recess and come back? Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, Representative Pinto, I think we can have the room till 10:05 if you think we can get there. Otherwise, we can pause, we can take a break, or we can just keep piling through it if you want to. So it's up to you. We'll go whatever you want.
And Mr. Chair and Chair McClelland, I don't think we'll be able to get done by 10:05, I will say. I probably have enough stuff myself to fill that. I think I've got some colleagues as well. And so I'll maybe look to colleagues to see if folks would want to go forward now or would want to just have us come back. I will say, Mr. Chair and folks in the room, it is not our intent to, we're not expecting this is going to go deep into the night, but 10 minutes I don't think is going to work for it. So
and to that, Mr. Chair, and then Representative Pinto and members, I think this is a good time to take a recess now to the call of the chair. Okay. I want to just also thank the testifiers for coming in. Your voice is the most important thing here today from both sides of this issue. That's why this is so important to get it right. And so I look forward to talking to all members here. Again, I will be reaching out to Representative Pinto, Representative Frazier, because this is sort of our idea of what if nothing changes, we can look at this. Because we think that we actually have some ideas that we can still roll something out, but we want to visit with you now quickly, like next week. But we're 24 days into session, members. We have to get moving, so time is ticking, and we have a lot of questions. So I look forward to that, Mr. Chair. So if you want to do your recess motion, and then we'll do that at that point tonight.
Thank you, Representative Baker. So we will now be in recess to the call of chair, which should be roughly 5 p.m. to this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.